following program is classified G. It's suitable for all ages. We would like to remind our viewers that the views expressed in this program by our participating guests are solely viewpoints of them who take part and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. This is an opinion-based program.
And a very happy Monday evening to all. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us once again on Get Real, where we talk about issues that matters to everyday Sri Lankans. And today's program is Get Real Extra, meaning we want to go beyond our usual show to give you a 360-degree take on issues that dominated the news agenda in the past few days. There were a lot. But my focus tonight is on three key issues: the economy, vaccination efforts, and of course the new Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa and his entry to Parliament. So the first topic, economy. Well, that and the new Finance Minister goes hand in hand. The country is indeed in a tough spot right now. Top economic brains of the government accepts that. Even State Minister of Money and Capital Markets Ajit Niwad Kabra was here and accepted that. Energy Minister Udaya Gambanpila was also here and stated the same fact. Most of our income earners aren't doing exactly well as we expected, and of course, with the world trying to recover from the pandemic, things are moving slowly. Last week, Foreign Secretary Admiral Professor John Columbia was here, and he said that despite the doom and gloom around the world right now, this is the best time to lay the groundwork towards new economic projects, so that by the time the world starts to come back, Sri Lanka will be in a strategic position to harness the new needs of the world. Listen in.
Despite the COVID, I think this is the best time to do construction and do things right now, because things are slowed down. So this is the time I think we should be ready to face the reality after the COVID is over. I mean, if we wait until the COVID is over, then what? You know, once the COVID is behind us, then everybody will be on a mad rush. So this is the best time to do construction, develop your infrastructure, get things right, get the acts and acts passed, commission set up. This is the best time to do that, I think, Mahieash.
Well, that was Foreign Secretary Admiral Professor John Columbia, who was here last week. Now, the question at hand is whether the current government is doing what it takes and laying the groundwork towards a better recovery process ahead. And it's going to be a daunting task for the newly appointed Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa to make that happen. Now, the next issue that I want to discuss tonight is the vaccination drive, and I need to give praise to the military for stepping in and doing a commendable job in expediting the process of giving vaccinations in a massively efficient manner. See, the jokers in the opposition, and along with their Western sponsors, are more hell-bent on a military takeover of Sri Lanka, which is not the case. They're trying to fear the Sri Lankan people by saying that. But what these goons doesn't understand, especially that dumb American lady representing her nation here, is that we Sri Lankans love our military. In fact, we all know that by giving them a responsibility, it's them who come through for us every single time. End the 30-year-old war, call the military, job well done. Floods, call the military. Landslide, call the military. COVID-19, call the military. Every time when the military has been put into a mission, they deliver. We, the Sri Lankan people, knows that. Now, hopefully, with them also contributing to the vaccination efforts, we will be able to get to getting all Sri Lankans fully vaccinated by September of this year, at least 60% of the population. All right, let's get more facts to all these, and for that, we turn to our facts guy. Like Bill Nye is the science guy, our facts guy is Dhanidhu Thanavasam himself, standing by with tonight's real story. Good evening, Dhanidhu.
Good evening, Mahieash. Sri Lanka is working hard to make sure the country faces its challenges successfully. Multiple topics have come up in discussion over the past week, of which the vaccination effort, Sri Lanka's process of economic recovery, and Minister Basil Rajapaksa's entry to Parliament have taken the paramount position. Let's analyze further into these areas and understand the current context. Amidst great barriers, Sri Lanka has proceeded to vaccinate the most vulnerable portions of society and the frontline staff. Recently, on the directives from the President, walk-in COVID vaccination programs began on the 5th of July at selected hospitals operated by the Triforces. The venture by the forces was incredibly successful and well received by the people living in areas neighbouring vaccination centres, primarily due to its professional management.
Since we got a million of doses from Sinopharm, His Excellency the President wanted me to organize the armed forces, especially the health. We have a medical corps in Army, Navy and the Air Force, the nurses, the doctors and the staff, those who are involved in the vaccination from the medical corps of all three services to get involved in the vaccination program. So thereby we commenced our vaccination accelerated program for the public. So we got all the hospitals of armed forces plus at least the health sections where they have health sections. We managed to give the vaccine to the people, and I'm sure that the people, we got a good response from the population in regard to the discipline, accuracy and also how the vaccine was given at the quickest, at the shortest time where they had to spend in a vaccination center. So this is how the vaccination is on right at the moment. Even His Excellency the President wanted the armed forces to get involved in the vaccination program in the future too.
Over 3.4 million people have received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Sri Lanka is currently administering the COVID Shield AstraZeneca vaccine, Sputnik V vaccine, Pfizer vaccine and the Sinopharm vaccine. Fully vaccinated travellers can now visit Sri Lanka from the 8th of July with only 1 day in quarantine until on-arrival PCR tests are cleared. One of the factors that this step is credited towards is the reduction in reported COVID-19 cases towards the later stages of June and early July. Moving over to the economy of Sri Lanka. In this outset, following the presidential election in November 2019, the Inland Revenue Act was revised so as to provide a wide range of concessions to taxpayers. While revenue is expected to be around 9.5% of GDP in 2021, it is expected to increase to 14.2% of GDP by 2025, in the background of the expected growth potential boosting the tax capacity. To complement such a strategy, several measures have already been taken to address the concerns in revenue collection. The budget deficit rose to 11.1% of GDP in 2020, and it is most likely to be over 12% of GDP this year in the backdrop of revenue shortfalls caused by pandemic-hit economic activities. Reforms in state-owned enterprise are also a key aspect of the fiscal strategy. The Ministry of Finance reports that the government's policy to appoint qualified professionals to the boards of management of SOEs has yielded benefits.
The key pillars are in place. There is a strong manufacturing drive and an impetus to stimulate that manufacturing drive through a strong fiscal framework. Apart from that, we see the monetary policy framework also being prudently managed. Apart from the exchange rate side, that is understandable because of the cash flow mismatch, but I think that anomaly will be addressed very soon, and I think you'll see the rupee appreciating once again, and that's something which is that we all look forward to, and I'm hopeful that will transpire very soon. On the fiscal front, there is a significant stimulus given to local manufacturers and local entrepreneurs and the banking sector. Those particular incentives are a result of what you see in terms of the profitabilities of all these companies. In fact, the stock exchange reported its highest ever earnings on listed companies. So all this speaks well for the overall framework of the economy and the prosperity of this economy, and I remain extremely confident, even though we are going through some turbulent times which needs a lot of pain management and adjustment, but overall I think the framework is in place.
Sri Lanka has been clear in its policy of not taking in funding from the IMF. Central Bank Governor Professor Lakshman said that the Sri Lankan economy is likely to have recorded a higher than expected growth rate in the first quarter of 2021. The entrance of Basil Rajapaksa to Parliament has also been a key concern within social discussions. The SLPP on the 6th of July nominated the name of Basil Rajapaksa to the Election Commission to fill the parliamentary seat vacated by former MP Jayantha Katagoda. He took oaths on the 8th of July 2021 as the Finance Minister of Sri Lanka. Under the Finance Ministry portfolio would be 48 government institutions. Previously, he was functioning as the head of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival and Poverty Eradication. Minister Basil Rajapaksa functioned as the Cabinet Minister of Economic Development from 2010 to 2015. In this backdrop, State Minister of Finance, Capital Markets and State Enterprise Reforms, Ajit Niwad Cabral, has mentioned that Sri Lanka plans on achieving an economic growth rate of 4.5% for 2021 and will improve this to 6% by the end of 2022, an aspirational yet important target.
Mr. Basil Rajapaksa won't make any difference, I don't think, because with the track record that he has had, even before 2015, the government, he was the economic development minister, most powerful minister at that time. But did he do anything to the economy? No. It was a debt burden he got our country into. So even in this government, the current government, it was him behind everything. Behind the scenes, he was the person who was leading every aspect of this government. So he was the man behind each and every act. So I don't think him coming to the parliament would make any difference.
So in a ministry like finance, there are a lot of things that we can do to get this whole thing moving, because it has a huge coordination role of all the ministries. When that ministry has that opportunity, we must put some of the best resources to drive that, and President and Prime Minister have thought Mr. Basil Rajapaksa would be the ideal person at this stage to focus on that, because he's somebody who has already delivered results, a kind of a workaholic, who is very detailed person, who goes for results. So somebody like that driving the finance ministry at this stage will definitely help us expediting the implementation process, which is our main hindrance currently.
The country is firm in its commitment to recover and rebuild, holding on to the promises given within the presidential election. A strong sign of administration that we all hope will reap benefits. Over to you, Mahieash.
All right, thank you for that, Dani Duvitanavasam, with the real story there. We are going to take a short commercial break. On the other side, the political panel will be here to give you a 360 take on those stories we've discussed. This is Get Real Extra. Be right back. Everyone, to get real time now, to get some context into the conversation we're having. We're trying to understand exactly the events that occurred in the past few days, few weeks, and try to get the political panel's take on that. Joining me tonight is from the SJB, Lihini Fernando, Municipal Councillor of the Moratuwa Municipal Council, and also representing the SJB tonight, and also Charindra Chandrasena, the Chief Editor at the morning newspaper. As you can if you've been watching all our trailers, you would have noticed that we also said Chris Balthazar from the SLPP is going to join us, but unfortunately, for some unavoidable matter, he cannot. Maybe he's partying somewhere. Oh, I don't know. He found something better to do. But anyway, we'll try to get him back. Let's start. We've been talking about mainly three things, Lihini, Charindra, with regard to what's been happening. COVID is still dominating the news agenda per se. It is pretty much trickling down into other areas as well. Economy, the rupee, how the business is done, how Sri Lanka is coming back. So let's start off with the only way we can get out of COVID, which is the vaccination efforts. Lihini, I would like to start your take on that. What do you think where we are and the road ahead for vaccinations? Because this is the only solution. There's no other way to get out of COVID.
So, as you said very rightly, we have no other solution but to vaccine the population as much as possible, as fast as possible. But looking at it for the conduct of the government for the past couple of months, are we at a satisfactory position in terms of vaccination is something that is questionable. So if I'm to bring you a few statistics, as at to date, as at 8th of July, out of the population, about 3.9 million was given the first vaccine, and the second dose was given only up to 1.4 million. That is about 6.1% of the entire population that has been fully vaccinated. Now, we saw President Gotabaya Rajapaksa making a statement recently saying that over 30s he hopes to get about 30 13 million vaccinated by end of September. That is about 60% of the population. And so totally, as at to date, only about 5 million of the population, only 5 million vaccines have been administered. 1.4 million only given, that is 6.51% given to as 2 doses. Can we achieve this target by 30th September, which is questionable. I'm hoping that we will get there, but also it is questionable. And also, if you look at the government's approach in terms of this whole vaccination drive, I like to bring in a few statistics and some of the statements that the government has made in the past couple of months. So we saw in January, Keheliya Rambukwala said that they had secured 11 million COVID-19 vaccines. Then in February, Minister Ramesh Patinana said that they were hoping to import 5 million vaccines to Sri Lanka in February. Then the Deputy Director General of Health, Dr. Hemantha, said government will purchase 18 million doses in future. So we see that the government coming in and making certain statements, contradictory statements, different people coming in and saying, look, we have purchased this many number of vaccines. But to this date, recently we saw Gotabaya Rajapaksa making a statement and saying this is the latest mechanism on how the vaccines have been purchased. So what we see as the opposition, by no means we are saying the population should be vaccinated, but we are a little skeptical about how the government is approaching this. Different ministers making different statements. So all in all, the outlook that is given to the people is that there is no consistent and no proper plan of the government. It is like haphazard, different months, different statements, but even as at today, 6.1 million of the population is only vaccinated.
You're talking as if we are in a perfect scenario where the whole world has, sorted this out, and, if by any chance, if we went ahead with, let's say, the initial stage when we, pretty much depended on India to provide us vaccinations of AstraZeneca, that was, a dud because they had issues. Just like that, various other countries are also asking for these vaccinations as well. So there are obviously logistical errors. Why isn't the opposition looking at those things? And just tell me, if by any chance you all were in power, what would have been the solution?
If we were in power, we would have been the first. We would have been the first to order the vaccines. Probably we ordered. The government started thinking of ordering the vaccines only come January. But whereas the Southeast Asian countries had ordered their vaccines come last November. And what was the government initially doing? They were going behind a pannier, the Dhammika pannier, trying to promote. Then we saw in Parliament Minister Vasudeva Nanakara coming and saying that there was no need to vaccine. So this is, you see the government's haphazard policies right along. See, we don't see that the government's concentrated effort in eradicating this pandemic or other controlling. It's like about
that is
it's
such
about
a misleading statement.
It's about let's play as it goes along. Where is the strategy?
Yes, because this is a pandemic that nobody has an idea about how it will turn. Now, see, initially we said there was only one strain. Now we find out that the fifth strain is also coming. So you need to change the game plan.
Look, we are not a country that is in isolation. You look at the other countries in Southeast Asia, how this whole thing is managed, how
different.
It is handled.
Again, the context in Sri Lanka is different. You're asking to bring some kind of another solution which has been done somewhere else and go and fit it somehow.
It is all right along, but what the opposition leader also has been stressing in Parliament is a government's lack of will, concentrated effort to ensure that we see an end to this. Not just manage, not just come up with haphazard strategies like piecemeal strategies.
What do you see, flip-flopping?
Firstly, I mean, it must not be forgotten that this is unprecedented.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So there is, I mean, we can go back and say that, it could have been done 2 months earlier or 1 month earlier, but at the moment, what is important is what is being done right now. What has happened, maybe there were mistakes made, but then around the world, we saw world leaders make mistakes, right? So at the moment, what is important is the correct steps being taken now. As for vaccination, that is the only hope, as the President himself has said. So are the vaccines being ordered, the doses being ordered, and are they arriving on time? At the moment, I feel that there is a certain step up in the game of the government in terms of ordering the vaccines and actually getting people inoculated, right? And in that respect, I think the fact that the army has gotten involved has actually accelerated the vaccination drive. I think a few fold. So that's good news. So at the moment, I don't know whether we should really be focusing on whether this could have been done 1 year ago, because see what is important to remember is that we didn't really have a problem with this until maybe the middle of last year, right? And I would say that we should have done it earlier. Yes, we should have planned earlier. There should have been more forward planning. But again, the fact that this was unprecedented, and a lot of world leaders, did get a lot of steps wrong in this process, including the US. Of course, that was Trump, but then including the US, including the UK, all these developed countries. And China is an exception because China had it first, and then they just went basically ballistic on
very rigid,
and also that they have a system where you say go and everybody goes, right? In Sri Lanka, not so much. But on that point, I have to say the government has to give some credit to the people for actually following a lot of its instructions.
Of course.
Right? I don't think it's fair for the government to say that people misbehave and all, because in Sri Lanka, a democratic country, unlike China, we have been very obedient as far as the government is concerned. We have followed a lot of instructions. You can't take a few isolated examples of these, low-income earners, trying to go out for food and then forgetting the mask, and those are just
understandable.
Yeah, understandable. Exactly.
Nobody wants to be cooped up and staying for months and months. Obviously, we are a freedom-loving country, so the moment that kicks in, you forget. That is understandable. So, what do you think? The president has given a target to the people, the health ministry. He has said, we need to get 60% of the population by September. Achievable?
Achievable. They'll have to go helter-skelter, but achievable, I think. But then for that, they need to first of all get the doses down, right?
Now doses are coming in millions.
Can I add in there?
Just one point there. Now with Pfizer, I wasn't really pleased about what happened with that process.
Just to add to this conversation, the Pfizer vaccinations were ordered way early. Okay, the government actually was looking at getting Pfizer because the Pfizer one was the vaccination that actually got the emergency approval from the FDA first. So as that happened, conversations were happening. So you can't pretty much say oh, they
I'm not talking about when it came. I'm talking about the fact that it was first given, for 1 day it was given as a second dose for AstraZeneca, and then suddenly there's a policy change because AstraZeneca is coming apparently, right? And Japan has promised. Now,
logistical.
Well, the way diplomatic engagements work, I doubt that they could not have known 24 hours before and then suddenly got a confirmation 24 hours.
That is a very unfortunate situation because with the AstraZeneca, and we get the first dose in January, and now how many months have passed by? The government has failed to secure that number of doses. So it's a lack of foreign policy, lack of foreign relations. That's what it comes to. So, answering the other question now, here we was talking about whether 13 million, 60% of the population above 30, whether they can be vaccinated by September. Now, even though the army, past couple of days, army had vaccinated about 118,000 people a day. Even if you go by, let's say 100,000 average a day, so we have about in September it's about 75 days. Still for all, it is not possible to achieve.
The president has given a clear directive. Get there. He's not going to, on September he won't say, okay, stand, I will punish all you. That's not going to happen. He's giving a clear directive. Get there.
But you need to have the vaccines. Have they ordered the vaccines? All this is hearsay. Now they have been saying, they have been saying in February they have ordered 11 million. They have said in February, Director General said that they had ordered 18 million. Ramesh Patrian said about 5 million vaccines ordered. Klehariya Ramukwala says 11 million. So this is what I'm saying. The government's haphazard policies, the lack of focused approach is what the government, is what the opposition is questioning.
You are misleading, calculatedly misleading that entire thing. Obviously, obviously nobody knows. There was no handbook given to this government or anyone for that matter saying these are the rules that you need to follow. Everybody is changing
also
it.
The vaccine supply is increasing. Vaccine supply is increasing.
Yeah, exactly.
So
now millions is coming.
It's about manpower, right? So the army can step up its game. It's not impossible. That's my point. Whether they do it or not, that's a different matter.
By no means should the opposition is all for vaccine, but what we are concerned is what we are saying is the government's lack of concentrated effort, the lack of planning, lack of that forward thinking.
Are you talking about now though? Right now?
Right throughout the pandemic. From talking about these Dhammika panniers to not being concentrated about vaccinating the people to not ordering the vaccines on time when the entire world ordered it last year, and also with the third wave letting the.
But right now, do you see a lack of effort?
Right now, that's what I'm saying. That's what matters. That's what matters.
They have no other choice but to get vaccine. We hope that they will get it vaccine. So let's wait till it happens rather than speculating. Let's make it happen and then let's talk about it.
All right. There's a lot more to discuss with the political panel. I want to take a short commercial break, but before that, when we return, I want to take a look at how the economy is working, and also then we have a new finance minister. His entire arrival to politics, re-arrival to politics was, hyped during the last week. We'll get the political panel's take on that. Before that, let's take a short commercial break. You're watching Get Real Extra. We'll be right back. Get Real Extra. I'm in conversation with my political panel, Lihini Fernando from the SJB, and also Charindra Chandrasena, Chief Editor of the morning newspaper. I want to get into the conversation with regard to the economy. Obviously, economy is getting hammered left, right, and center due to COVID. Necessary steps have been put in by the government, again changing here and there, looking at the outlook. What's your take on that, Charindra?
I don't really know whether the policy that is being pursued by the government is really going to get us out of this mess, right, to be very honest. I think there needs to be a more balanced policy without right now it feels like a very simple policy of import curtailment, and
that's a short term
that's the thing. So what's the long term then? Right? What's the long-term goal, or what's the long-term plan? Because for import substitution, there has to be some sort of local production that is happening. So at the moment, it feels like we are thinking, okay, we'll stop the imports and then we'll get the industries going. And that is probably a decision that was necessitated by the COVID pandemic in the early part of last year. Still, right, I don't know whether they should have gone this far. Right, it's because of our reserves. Our reserves are going down, dwindling, and we are worried that we will have a balance of payments issue. However, what are the steps? That's what I want the government to come out and say. As a citizen, I want the government to come out and say, these are the steps we are taking to increase local production. Right? Don't just say that we are stopping imports. We don't want to be an import-dependent country, and our production will take care of it. Where is the production coming from?
If you look at pretty much what the people are forgetting is all these plans, all what the government is saying that they're doing right now is already been promised to the people prior to the election. It is in the vistas of prosperity. The president and the government has not deviated from that at all. This is what they said, even when it comes to banning the import of chemical fertilizer. That is pretty much there in this.
But that was a 10-year plan, though. That was a 10-year plan, right?
Yeah, exactly. So 10 years. Pretty much what the government is saying, because why I'm saying this is the State Minister for Money and Capital Markets, Ajit Dimat Cabral, who was here about 2 weeks back, and he clearly said deviation has not happened. So what they're trying to do is they are still trying to go the extra mile and have the agenda of the government intact.
But has it not been accelerated because of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. They're saying even getting investments to the port city and all those those things should have happened long time back. So it has been slowed down. So all these actions which the opposition is hyping as, oh no, the end of the world is coming, has been promised to the people in vistas of prosperity. This has happened. But what do you think? Like, I understand, we need to make changes and we need to communicate to the people. That is very important, because, not knowing what the government is doing, what the plan is, telling that these import-exports, curtailment is short-term, those things needs to be communicated. Absolutely right. What do you think, like the outlook? We are finding it very difficult to keep the rupee at bay. It seems to be, getting loans from here and there and trying to do that. That's not going to be a long-term solution, and that's very detrimental to our economy. What do you think?
No, I think, I personally think, if we are going to be an export-oriented economy, it does benefit in a way for us to have a low-valued currency. However, at the moment, the problem is that this is not a planned depreciation of the rupee. This is basically, there's excess money printing, and then that is devaluing the rupee, and there are other issues going on. Cost of living is skyrocketing. So there are a lot of issues to be sorted out. Now, the growth figures for the first quarter, 4.3%, are quite good, right, considering the situation. Yeah. But that was before the third wave, right? So when the third wave is factored in for the second quarter, that will go down again. Whether it will go down into minus, I don't know. I don't think it will go down to minus. I think maybe it will be 1 to 2% probably. Either way, now what is the outlook from there on? Say we are now coming out of the third wave, then we have to plan for the rest of the year, the second half of the year, the next 2 quarters. What is our plan to make the economy not just survive, but to bounce back? Yeah. Right? That is what they have to articulate, and I think a more holistic policy is required than piecemeal.
Very much in agreement, because the economic policies is not something that the layman understands very clearly. So it has to be broken down into chewable pieces and fed into the people. That the dearth of information, yes, understandable. Lihini, I come to you and try to get a take on what do you think the economic status of this country? What is the opposition currently saying?
So it is quite alarming, actually, the present situation of the country. I don't think none of us want to be in a situation like this for Sri Lanka to be downgraded further and further. Now, we are in a situation where at the moment we can't even open an LC. There are ships that are lying in the port where the government can't pay the bills to get it released. So we are in a situation like that. Now, come July 27th, we have to pay a massive loan of $1 billion this coming July. And if you take within the next the next 12 months, Sri Lanka has to pay loans up to about 2.5 billion that is due. So how are we going to facilitate these loans? How are we going to pay these loans is questionable. Our foreign reserves today has reduced to $4 billion. Whose
fault is
that? It's like this.
Whose fault is that?
You can say, now we have governments, we have had collective governments. So collective governments obviously should take responsibility, and also the white elephant projects that were executed by the previous government, those also have resulted in these unplanned investments.
But the previous government also has to take some blame, right?
But previous government, when the previous government was in office in 2019, the foreign reserves was 7.6 billion. Now it has reduced to 4 billion. So, and 4 billion.
When y'all came into power, y'all were handed over more than 14 billion. And when you were going out, I mean, we should have had 21 billion in the reserves, but y'all have reduced it to 7 billion and gone.
No, but what were we doing? We facilitating
question. What did you do?
The facilitating the debts that the government, Mahindra Rajapaksa government, then had taken, the white elephant projects, which absolutely yield no income to this country.
Then you tax the people left, right, and center, and you.
What about the wrong tax policies that this government has taken, the loss of income that it has caused, the wrong tax policies in 2019 that has resulted to this?
When President Gotabaya Rajapaksa came into power, prior to that, in his promises, he said, I'm going to change the tax regime completely. And he said, this is what I'm going to do.
To favor his cronies.
Not favor his cronies. You can't
the cronies
that be a go-to line for every single time.
To be fair, Lihini, the corporate tax was a huge issue between the previous government.
Then the loss to the government. How has the government? Bring tax reforms, but you should have counter mechanisms to recover it. But they have not. Now, as Charindra clearly said, what is the government's plan in terms of increasing its income? In terms of what is the clear plan? Today, the government. Today, we see excessive money printing that is happening. Over 600
that is
billion.
A requirement. We thought that we are doing that. The whole world is
money
doing
printing results in inflation, and that is a basic Keynesian economic theory. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you can justify money printing.
Do you understand that we are in an unprecedented situation? The economic policies and everything have had to be thrown out of the window because to address the dire needs of the country at this moment.
See, there are other countries in the world who are managing the pandemic, who are managing the economic situations. What we are doing is we are just going behind loans, going after China, going after other countries to save us. But what is the government's plan in saying this is a mechanism in increasing income? So have they gone into knowledge-based economies or different avenues of generating revenue to the country? What are the different? Now we know the parallel market, the tourism sector, all are down. But what are the alternative mechanisms they have come? What are the strategies? What has the government done for the past 1 year or so to revive the economy? New strategies. That is what the people are questioning. None of us want this country to be in a situation like this. For us to go in for debt default, for us to be downgraded by the Moody's, and for us to not to even open an LC. Yeah. This is wrong strategy, Mahieash.
There is a structural issue, just to be fair. There is a structural issue also, Lihini, in the sense that we have for long been too dependent on tourism and the plantation sector. That is a structural issue, and I don't know whether the government could have changed it in 1 year, completely overhauled. However, what you're saying is also understood, that they could have maybe, created different avenues, and that's where my import restrictions issue comes in. However, just one point on that, on money printing also, it depends on the situation of the economy and what kind of economy it is. Right now, overall globally, modern monetary theory is being followed, and there is a lot of money printing going on, including the developed economies. But that money has to be absorbed by the economy, right? If it leads to inflation and then hyperinflation, possibly.
And there will not be a demand to be supplied at the end of the day. And also, Mahieash, the other thing is, why not make the COPA reports public? Why not understand the financial mismanagement of this country? Why not come up with strategies to reduce the income?
Should be talking about, investigating about financial mismanagement. It should do the past 5 years, because all the big shots in your government, Dr. Harsha De Silva, Iran Vikramaratne, Ravi Karunanika, Mangala Samaravira, all these people mismanaged it to the core, and you left pretty much a skeleton of a country when it comes to the economy. And now you all have the audacity to scream and say you're all doing this wrong. How can the government take advice from a political party that was rejected by the people because of their mismanagement of the
I completely disagree. I completely disagree. That government at that point managed to pay the loans, and also
this government has never defaulted.
And the dollar never shot up to
it did.
Now the dollar is 200. What are the fuel prices? What are the cost of living prices? Today you can't even give fertilizer to the people. I mean, wrong policies at the wrong time. Mahieash,
you're talking about liberal ideology here.
Mahieash, it's not about winning an argument. It's about doing the right thing by the country.
Exactly. Fertilizer ban is the right thing to do, because you have to think beyond.
See, it is a 10-year plan. It is not about bringing down the farmer to this extent. I mean, crippling their source of income. And and it's not something that you can overnightly implement. It is wrong strategy.
And
it is wrong strategy of the government.
It is not the wrong strategy, because the fertilizer ban is something that this government has taken.
And food prices,
absolutely right.
We
have to go for carbon-based, fertilizer, because that is the future. That is the future of this country.
How much of a rigid strategy? Yes, organic fertilizer, but not in this manner, not the overnight implementation. It has to be a concentrated process.
If the opposition actually spoke to scientists, you will understand that you cannot do it, step by step. Everyone is saying because it's about creating ecosystem.
The people will reply to the government very soon. If your strategies are right, why would people want to come to the roads and protest?
That is something that I cannot,
why are people coming to the roads and protest? Because people are unhappy because the government is doing wrong by the people.
The protests
and
are
then
fueled by the SJB.
No,
we all know that.
And also our freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is also curtailed by this government. We saw recently when the court grants bail, the police coming and taking the people, and we saw ladies how harassed they are. This is not the government that this promise
and you that they promise.
No, of course not. Why should we do this thing? It is the people's right. The government is suppressing the people because the government is unpopular.
Suppressing the opposition fueled bogus protest.
It is the opposition's right to protest. It is the opposition's right.
Of course.
Article 14 of the Constitution.
Follow the health protocols.
The government doesn't want dissenting opinion.
No,
that is it, because their mismanagement is getting exposed. They don't want dissenting opinion.
I think the ability for you to even speak right now and use all this opposition, and there's nothing happening to you, is the witness saying that
you are saying it at your defense, but that is not the position for the common man.
Let's take a short commercial break. One more segment to go. Quite interesting discussion with my political panel. Charindra keeping quiet as usual, enjoying the show. Let's take a short commercial break. You're watching Get Real Extra. We'll be right back. To Get Real Extra, I'm in conversation with my political panel, Charindra Chandrasena from the chief editor at the morning newspaper, and also Lihini Fernando from the Samagi Janabalaga Vegia. The other topic that I wanted to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that Basil Rajapaksa, who has been a very key person in the SLPP, who pretty much drove the victory of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and also the SLPP back into power about 2-3 years back, now has come and taken the position as the finance minister. Very daunting task at this particular time, because you all saw the economic conditions, and you all agree that we are in dire conditions and we need to do something about it. What's the SJB's point of view with regard to Basil Rajapaksa coming into Parliament, taking over the finance ministry, and the road ahead for him?
See, not SJB's, but I will speak from my personal view of what I think. See, politics in Sri Lanka is, Mahieash, not about glorifying a person or a family, or thinking that by moving certain figureheads at certain times that the country can turn onto the right situation. I think people in this country ought to understand that politics in this country should be about having a proper system and having right people in the right positions who can deliver that. So I think people in this country voted for Gotabaya Rajapaksa hoping that he will put the system right. He came out as a visionary, as a technocrat, as a person who will think out of the box, and that who can challenge the conventional manner of politics. That is the premise that Gotabaya Rajapaksa in his vistas of prosperity, which he sold to the people of this country. On that premise only the 6.9 million people voted. But now when you see them bringing Basil Rajapaksa, I think it is also somewhat of an insult to Mahinda Rajapaksa, and also the Prime Minister, ministers coming and saying that he is a person with 7 brains, and also he will come and he will reduce fuel prices, that he will give organic fertilizer. So making statements like this, Mahieash, I think is also an insult to the Prime Minister, and also it's an insult to the present President, showing that they are incapable, that you need a person like Basil Rajapaksa to save. That this is my opinion. And also, Mahieash, what is more interesting is that when this government brought in the 20th Amendment, we know that there were certain ministers who was opposing this whole concept of dual citizenship, Basil Rajapaksa being a dual citizenship. At that point, when MPs like Vimal Weerawansa, Udaya Gammanpilla said that they oppose it because of this dual citizenship. And then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa gave them the assurance that this was because they brought in the whole 19th Amendment dual citizenship clause, and that he felt that it was somewhat of a personal insult to him, and he gave an assurance that it is is only until the election reforms are brought in. And now we see Basil Rajapaksa in parliament. They are brought in. So we see
still not the in.
Yeah. So we see they bring in Basil Rajapaksa. So what happened to those MPs who opposed? Then my other question is, one of the fundamental arguments that they brought in at that point is they brought in the whole argument of Arjun Mahendran, Central Bank, that you can't file any cases against him because he's a dual citizen. And that same theory applies to Minister Basil Rajapaksa. Now he's a dual citizen, one foot in Sri Lanka, one foot in America, responsible for the topmost ministry in this country, 54 institutions under him. Let's say there is financial mismanagement, there is no assurance that that he will not go out of the country. So this is this. From a people's point of view, from a policy point of view, these are not my things. These are not what the SJB or the opposition is saying. These arguments were brought in by the SLPP MPs, because when they promoted the nationalistic agenda, they promoted the whole patriotism concept, and they said we Sri Lankans, this whole Sri Lankan identity, and then they changed the law to bring in another Rajapaksa and having hope in another Rajapaksa. So again, when we look at all these things, what we see is the whole two words, not one. At one point they will say one country, one law. So they are going back on their own word. And I think Sri Lanka, we as Sri Lankans, we must feel sad. We feel disappointed about this country for having leaders with lack of policy, lack of strategy, who are bystander to fulfill their agenda.
Did this shame start in 2015?
See, what is wrong, Mahieash. Even if any government does what is wrong is wrong.
Most of the stuff that you raised, since you said it's your personal opinion, so I'm not going to pander on that and talk about it. I want to get Charindra's take on that as well. How do you see, more or less, that's a political decision by the political party to put him there. So let's say we don't have the, that is not our job. But now he is the finance minister. He's the finance minister. He has to look at the country. Now he has a responsibility because he's, supporting ministers went and said, he will do this. Now, what do you think about the road ahead?
Like you said, I don't want to get into the political side of it, because it's the government's decision whether they put somebody as finance minister, prime minister. That is the government's decision. I don't think it makes anybody look bad per se, right? But I have a different take on this, and that is not related to Mr. Basil Rajapaksa, right? Why is Sri Lanka as a culture following personalities, trying to change everything by inserting a person? Developed countries haven't been changed by just one person. These are systems. We need somebody who is coming in to set up systems, not because they are popular, and throughout our history, every time, every election, we go and vote for personalities. And where has that got us? We need to establish systems. Why aren't politicians talking about, okay, this is our economic miracle, that this system is being established, right? It's not a project or any small thing like that. A system. You talk about Singapore a lot, right? Singapore is built on systems. It's built on institutions. The rule of law, lack of corruption, checks and balances, all that. So I don't think you bringing somebody, no matter which government it is, right? A lot of governments have been doing this.
That is understandable, obviously.
Yeah, right? It's not one person can't make a miracle out of this.
That is something like everybody all across the board accepts the fact that, we need to stop this, going behind this person, that person, and especially this begging mentality that needs to go away and get out of this. That is understandable. But what I'm saying, what I'm asking you is like, now he's the finance minister. Okay, it's just because we both don't like it, he's not going to change. Now he has
I don't not like it.
No.
It's
not a case of us liking or disliking. We are not the decision makers. It's about how wrong the decision is.
And understandable. But what I'm asking Charindra is, now he has a clear path. Get this country out of this mess. What do you think? He's capable? Because prior to this, he did a really commendable job under President Mahindra Rajapaksa. Rajapaksa as the economic advisor and brought the country's, all these projects came. According to what I understand is that they want a stable, like for foreign investors to come in, they need to see some stability in the government, not flip-flopping. So I think the government is moving towards that by putting all these, strong people who has done something in the past and trying to get the confidence of the investor up again, because there is a big project, the Port City project, which we really need to get it right this time around. And it looks like that's where the government is slowly heading.
Yeah, but see, that's one project. That's a big project, but that's one project, right? That alone, my point is this, Mahieash. You get Mr. Basil Rajapaksa as the finance minister, or you bring anybody. You bring Lee Kuan Yew and put him as finance minister, right? The point is that these are systems, and when you talk about Lee Kuan Yew, what he did was establish systems. Yeah. What I want to hear, right, is what are the systems that are going to be established? Yes, because see, nobody wants to see the economy fail, because that means the country fails. So therefore, nobody should want to see the government fail. Yeah, see, right? Mahieash, and I really hope the opposition doesn't want the government to fail.
Of course, right? nobody wants a government.
Nobody who loves the country wants the government to fail.
Mahieash, this is the same narrative. This is the same narrative you said about Gotabaya Rajapaksa, which you promised, saying he will be all this. But what we see is, what I personally see is, it's about protecting the Rajapaksa legacy, nothing about that. It is about switching heads to ensure that they will stay in power and selling that rhetoric to the people.
You can't say that when your leader was there for 25 odd years, Ranil Wickremesinghe, when there was so much of time for him to give the reins and go home, he did not do that. You're having the log in your eye and pointing towards the speck in the others.
So that's what I'm saying.
I understand. What he says is right. Well, we have to change the system.
It's a systemic issue. There's no point. Yeah.
It is a system issue. No, so at the end of the day, what this government is expecting, they are changing figureheads. At one point, they said Gotabaya Rajapaksa will deliver, and now they are replacing it with Basil Rajapaksa. Also, I like to ask this question. There were certain policies that Gotabaya Rajapaksa promised the people, this whole environment, protecting environment concept, and no poster-free policy. And then we see when Basil Rajapaksa is appointed right around the country, all local, even in my area, local councillors going all around having posters and cutouts and all that, congratulating him. This is not the policy.
Again, it comes down to what he says.
This is not the policy. So this is what I'm saying. The government does not have a policy. It's just about managing. It's about ensuring that the Rajapaksa legacy continues.
I'll just tell you about something that is not political, right? What I want is, this cutouts and this environment, those are all in the political sphere. What I'm saying is, what I want to say is the government coming out, and now the new finance minister coming out, laying out his economic vision and the way forward for us. Exactly. And there has to be a common thread connecting that economic vision. There can't be, piecemeal measures being taken here, stop the imports because the reserves are dwindling, right? And then get a swap facility to buffer the reserves, and then say that we can make the repayments. That's not the point. Get a holistic vision. It's still not too late, right? If the change has been made for a reason. Get a holistic vision. Say that this is going to be our economic vision going forward. This is what we'll do, and 2 years down we'll deliver on this.
Exactly. There is more years remaining for this government, so lot to do, and we hope that they will actually go on
certainly
the
hope
path.
They have the ability and the knowledge to deliver.
Lihini, Charindra, thank you very much for coming and actually keeping the conversation alive and lively as well. Lihini, really appreciate your contribution. Well, that's all the time we have for you tonight. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm pretty sure you have your own opinion as well about these issues. And thank you for taking the time to check us out on this Monday night. Get Real Extra. We'll be back again next week with another topic that affects you and me. Have a good night.
What kept me from sleeping in the middle of the night? What kept me sleepwalking in broad daylight? What kept me from seeing the best in you? What kept me from saying everything I needed to? What kept me from sleeping in the middle of the night? What kept me sleepwalking in broad daylight? What kept me from seeing the best in straight from the heart. So how could I hide all these feelings I feel when I'm by your side? Oh, stop trying so hard and just let it ride. And now you got me back hoping with my arms wide open it'll be alright. And no more will I stumble, no more will I fall. Came crashing to my knees, but I'm beginning to crawl. Yeah, I'm standing on my feet, well, I'm running to the light. Feel like jumping from the mountain, feel like jumping from the mountain. No more will I stumble, no more will I fall. Came crashing to my knees, but I'm beginning to crawl. Yeah, I'm standing on my